Oh wait, ASMR you said? How was that? This feels good, keep doing it. Okay, everybody, wake up. Okay, wake up, we test this now. So today I have a very special content for you. So here I have the Powder Plus Foundation from MAC, as well as an Evelyn brush. And so today I want to show you how to prepare yourself perfectly for the stream. So let's unpack this. There we go. So the reason why we want to use this is because the light is reflecting from our skin while we are streaming. So you can see that here is quite some highlights and reflections in my face, and so that's why we are using this powder. So let me apply this. So what you want to do is just get a little bit on your brush, and then you just apply this to all your things here, to your skin. You could also use I forgot the English term. I show you in a second. There's also I don't know how these things are called. So, and in a second you will see that I don't shine as much anymore. I need to get my hair out of my way here. Okay, so I think, so the reason for using the brush is that the brush is a little bit less effective with putting the powder on your face. We could also use a sponge, that's the term I was looking for. We could also use a sponge that would then have a thicker result, but I'm very much still an amateur when it comes to powder, so I don't know what I'm doing, so I need to go slow and not do the advanced stuff right away. So I think we are pretty good now. My face is less shiny than before. Now, of course, I gotta do my hair as well. That is what we will do next. So to do my hair, I'm using this hairspray. And what I usually do is just like this. I'm a bit nervous doing this all on video. And there we go. We are ready for the stream. Hello everybody, how's everybody doing? This was not a joke. I went to the store and bought powder because when I was editing my like a clip from the stream, I really noticed the glare because I've never been on camera before on like YouTube videos, right? I've never done this. So that never was a thing, but now that I'm streaming and I have like my face there, I noticed this. I feel like, so here's one thing, I'm so white here compared to now to my face. Maybe I should have gone with a slightly lighter tone here. I'm still learning, whatever. So I went to the store and asked the lady and told her that I make YouTube videos and the light is shining and I need something to make my face less reflective. Because I was being told that every professional, oh my gosh, I have powder everywhere. That every professional YouTuber in all these clips that you are seeing usually wear makeup actually. Because that helps with the lights. And yeah. So yeah, I went to the store and asked her what to get. And she laughed the whole time. She couldn't believe that somebody is doing YouTube videos and walked into the store and wanted to buy makeup now. So she asked also what my YouTube channel is and stuff like this. That was pretty funny. So, actually some things have changed since yesterday's streaming as well. Not only am I... Actually, yesterday I was already wearing powder, but more things have changed since yesterday or 2 days ago. And that is this setup here. Did you notice that there's a camera here? So, my second table rig for cameras setup is arrived. So not only this up here, I put the angle a little bit higher, so now it's like sticking into the field of view. Maybe I put this camera further down again because it is a little bit obnoxious. But yeah, I attached now this camera here, and this is also connected here. So let me show you. Now we can have like super close-ups. Let me even show you the other view. Like, see how close we can get now down here, and I can show you exactly what we are doing. So we have a nice macro lens camera here that we can record this with a little bit depth of field as well, and so doesn't this look awesome? Okay. I updated my Stream Deck. So did you see how it, with one button press, it automatically switched to this view, but also removed me in the corner, because otherwise I would have been on there double. This was in previous streams not like that. I always had to, by hand, decide what to show where. So now I can switch between all these cameras. I can have now the face, and I can put the macro thing on. I can show the overhead view, or, okay, wait, this is a bad example. Or I can also switch to the laptop here to show you this screen, and then I can, for example, switch to just the overhead view as a full thing, and it removes the overhead view as well, and I can add myself there as well, and so I can switch back and forth. Super happy. I think I'm super cool. Let's go back to this view for now. Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, and I had an old monitor that I set up here, so now I have the chat on here as well, so I don't always have to look over here. So when I'm working here, I can just look up and have the chat here in my view as well. Just can't scroll it. That's the only issue. I'm not sure if you know this, but YouTube operates YouTube spaces around the world. Not that many, like a dozen or so. And there's one in Berlin. And I've been to several workshops at this YouTube space. So if you have a YouTube channel and starting with 1,000 or 10,000 subscribers, they offer workshops for YouTubers. So I've gone to some of them. It's not really applicable to me because they teach you how to operate cameras and lights and audio, and they review your channel and stuff like this. So it wasn't fully applicable to me, but I always thought, oh, that's kind of fun to do this for free. Gotta learn something. So I've been there. And so, because usually all the other YouTubers are doing like showing their face in their videos, they were usually always in their presentations say, like they would go over the production basics, and they would then say stuff like, and of course everybody, as you all know, are also wearing makeup. And I was always sitting there, yeah, sure. I totally know that this is a basic thing. So yeah. Anyway. Let's ignore anything about the master thesis. Your profile pic is misleading. It looks like you are offline. Yeah, I was just being told this. I didn't realize that Twitch, or didn't pay attention that Twitch is doing grayscale when the person is offline and not when you are clicking on it. That's very unfortunate because my picture is grayscale. So maybe I tinted red, or I don't know, put a red spot on there. Maybe I put my glitch emote on there or something like this, so that it's very prominent when I'm live. This is the setup that we got so far. We built the clock module, which is working. We can decide the speed of the clock here, and we have built in the past 2 streams built a register here, and then we have also tested the register with this over here. So this left side here is supposed to be like the bus that will later connect all the different pieces in the CPU. And these are the register values. So the register is currently completely like set to 1111. Let's maybe try to, again, this is still the test setup from last time. How about we just replicate the test from last time? So first of all, I put the clock in manual mode with a switch, and now we can, but with this button click, we can do the clock. And now let me think. What was the enable and what was the? I think this was the input enable. Was that the input enable? Let's see. On minus, I think it's input enabled. So let's see. If I put now here. Right. Okay. Wait. Let's see. I put this one. Oh wait. I'm okay. Wait. Okay. Let me disable the input, and let me. And let's enable the output of the register. Okay, so on the left side, this is basically the bus of the CPU. We have enabled the register is now outputting its value that is stored onto the bus that is controlled with this pin. And so now we disable the output again. We put a 0 into the first LED basically onto the bus, and we enable the reading. We make the into reading mode. Now this thing is ready to read, but it's waiting for the clock tick, if I remember correctly. So that's issue 1 clock tick. Yes. So now it read the value with the clock tick into this register. We disable the input again, and then we enable the output. And now this LED is not glowing. So that's how this register works. We always enable the input, the clock signal comes and reads the value into the register. We disable the input, and then we can, if we want to put it back onto the bus, we then enable the output. That's the register. Okay, so let's see, where did we leave off? We tested our computer's registers last time. Oh, we are heading into the calculations already, into the ALU. Yeah, so a viewer sent me like a list with all the videos and what is being done there, so I can plan my streams a bit better. And in there, he was telling me that a couple of these modules are built just behind the scenes. So maybe we also should just build 2 more of these or something like this. I don't know. I think there are 2 more registers to build, or yeah, I think so too. Does he say anything about that maybe on the website? Because I was so far only following the YouTube series. I did not like look on the website what he says there. So let's see if he says anything about here in the register page. In our simple breadboard CPU, we will build 3 8-bit register, A, B, and instruction register. The AB register are general purpose registers. The instruction register works similarly, but we will only use it for storing the current instruction that's being executed. Okay, so here he has the A register, the B register, and the instruction register, and nothing else. So should we just build these before we move on to the ALU? Why the fuck was I surprised you sound the same on stream as in your YouTube videos? Okay, let's. I want to peek really quick just into the next video, just if he says something about like the series, what he expects to do next, or is that just going directly into the 2's complement?
With binary. For example, this is 101 in the 4's place.
Okay, so this is just a generic video about 2's complement. Let's check out the... Okay, this looks more like continuing here. Let's see what he quickly says about this here.
In previous videos, we built these registers that are able to store a value. So for example, this register currently has the value 6 in it. 110 in binary is 6. This register currently has a value of 2. So 10 in binary is a 2. And these registers are connected to a shared bus so that they can output their contents to the bus. You know, if we set this signal here, you can see the 6 gets output to the bus. And they can also input data from the bus, and so you can move data from one register to another and so forth. This register down here is our instruction register. We're going to kind of ignore that for the next few videos, because if we
Okay, so he's going now here in the arithmetic of like these two registers. So I would say we definitely build now a second register, and I would say actually we can maybe already build the original bus that he has on his design as well, because you know why not this bus here, or at least like one segment or something like this maybe, instead of having it here. I think that would be good. And move that a bit up, and then I'm getting another breadboard, and we can finally use the wire stripper. Okay, so on this channel you will find two playlists. You will find the full stream archive, so they are still archived on oh, the blind hacker, thanks for the bits, and nice to see you here. So on this channel you can find the full stream archive. It's also archived on Twitch, but it's on there only for like 30 days or something like this. So you will be able to find the whole archive there in a playlist, and you can just binge, not watch it because it's super boring. Oh my gosh, YouTube, like this laptop is so slow. Why is your YouTube that slow? So this is, I'm running this here on a ThinkPad, and the problem on here is that I have OBS running, which hogs a lot of the hardware, because I'm streaming whatever OBS is currently seeing. So basically the screen is streaming it over the network to my main streaming PC, where it is being picked up. So it constantly records the screen and then fires it over the network to this machine here. And I assume that just is too much for this hardware of this laptop. And then having YouTube itself with like encoded videos and large videos and stuff like that. Oh, there's one other thing. I have a small unboxing. I got this from China. It's, I think, one of the chips that we need. I think it's actually the arithmetic unit that might even come up in the next videos now. Yeah, just also regular chips. Okay, that was the unboxing part. Let's go back to, they only output when you enable them. So the problem is, if we want to see what is stored in the register, we would only see it when it is outputting. But when it's outputting, it would be writing to the bus, and we need to disable their output to the bus at some point, because it's like a shared bus of multiple different components, and each component, there's always should only be one component putting a value onto the shared bus. So what Ben Eder decided to do is he uses this bus transceiver chip, which is basically just a chip that can kind of like connect or disconnect a connection. So basically these registers are set to consistently output just their value. They are always on outputting in order to drive the LEDs, and they then go in as inputs into this chip over here, which can then be enabled or disabled. So you see this here. These registers are always outputting for the LEDs, and we can enable or disable then with this chip if we put it onto the bus. If you would just build a PC and you wouldn't, or computer, and you wouldn't care about this LED output here, then you wouldn't need this chip, and you just make the enable and disable for the enable the output or not for this one here. So we just use 3 chips so that we can have the LEDs. Hair cam. Did I lean too much in or something? But you know, it's a beauty channel now. Yeah, I said it yesterday already. This is like Lego for grown-ups, right? We have a lot of parts that we stick together, and we are following a build guide by somebody who made it for us. It's like Legos. not that Legos are not for grown-ups. Spoiler, I definitely also want to buy Lego at some point as an excuse to stream it. But, with the excuse to stream it, because I miss Lego a lot. I need to maybe make myself markings on here to know what is then in view of the Canon camera. The top right corner. Bottom right. Okay, cool. That's useful. By the way, official live overflow merge. This makes more sense. Is the output buffer just XOR? No, let me show you the output buffer. It's actually a bit more...
We have, a 6 here and a 2 here,
a bit more fancy. Register. Thanks for the 5 gifted subs, the blind hacker. As he mentioned in here briefly, he has also a stream, so make sure to also check him out and subscribe. He's also streaming a lot about security. I mean, here you don't get to see any security, but on his stream you get to see security and talk security more. This chip, it's an Octal Bus Transceiver, so it's not just an XOR. So this one is basically 8 times in there. You have an input and an output, as well as input and output enable, but they are connected to all of them. So, but what you are interested in is only these 2 lines. And these are tri-state. This triangle in the chip means it's a tri-state, and tri-state is basically what is shown on here. It's actually basically like a physical switch, because on logic, on connected wires, you have either high or low. But low also means that it's connected. It's just very low voltage compared to high, which is then like, in this case, like over 3.3 volts, just like 5 volt or something like this. So, the blind hacker also subscribed yourself. Thanks so much. So, low and high always means the wires are connected. But a tri-state means that there's a third state, and this third state is that it's not connected at all. It's just like not connected, floating. And so this chip basically has, with these enable pins, you can make this line connected or not. And you want this on a bus, because this bus is like just like a wire where a lot of different components are connected to. And sometimes a component wants to write to it, and sometimes it wants to read from it, which is kind of weird. Imagine like different circuits would try to output to the same thing, or a circuit would like read and write at the same, like it can get to short circuits basically if in certain setups. And so basically this allows you to always disconnect, like really basically physically disconnect, making a tri-state, like not connected, and only connected when you actually want to read or when you actually want to write. So that's what you... it's mostly about the write state, I guess, or the output, that you disconnect, that it's not writing anything, it's disconnected. And it also doesn't... Yeah, well, you get it, I guess. I mean, I have also only understand it like half. As Shio had said, we do things on stream not because they are easy, but because they are useless. He said that, oh gosh, do you have like a quote or clip of that? That would be great. Okay, I think this wire cutter is not performing well if you need to cut really short pieces of wire. Oh, thanks for the cheer, Carbone. One issue with the makeup I have is I'm unsure if I can scratch my nose. Like Ben Eater implemented Fibonacci calculation in it, and it uses all 16 bytes, and I believe that's the only a bit more complex program that is possible with this machine, I think. Oh my gosh, this wire cutter is so terrible. Oh, I need to maybe adjust it. look what just happened. I put it here. I put it here, and then it stripped like from the start everything. Not really into the JavaScript stuff, but only because I'm a bit biased. How do you mean biased? What are you biased about? I mean, it is binary hacking, or it will be soon, like basically starting with, yeah, maybe in the next video. So we actually go into the exploit and we look at the memory corruption that happens and how you then can turn that into something more powerful to finally like get to a more powerful primitive. So that is modern binary exploitation. Like, what is this for? Is that just the length? What does this affect? If I turn it the other way, then there's somehow like resistance. Or you also hear that? One problem is somewhat also that the pressure of the plates here in the front that are just holding it are somewhat also damaging the layer. See? Let me show you. So this dent here, this dent here came from the plastic in the front holding it. And that is also exposing wire. Like if you look very, like if I bend it a bit this way, you see that it's even scratched and damaged it. Yeah, that tool looks not fit for purpose right now. Yeah, I've been stripping wires with this wire cutter the whole time. Like just like, you know, old school, doing like this and then pulling. But that was kind of annoying and was kind of not precise. Yeah, I don't know. That's why I wanted a wire stripper. And then I went shopping extra for it. Especially, so the top one is fine, but the bottom one, the metal thing that is holding, is slightly angled, and so it creates an edge. So what I'm thinking right now is if I can take this edge a little bit off, like maybe a bit of a felt pad, but then it would be like super thick, I think. Then it wouldn't like properly close anymore. I want to strip wires, but it's damaging the wire. If you look here, like that. Then here, okay, this one went pretty mild. Sometimes it actually, here you see a little slight dent, I guess, here. This is where it was holding, and sometimes it even like rips it and exposes the wire there. So just being frustrated about that. I have another wire stripper ordered. This one was actually super cheap, but this was the only one available at the store that I went to when I went buying makeup. I went to this store to buy this wire strip, and they only had this one here. So there was not a choice for like a proper electronics one or something. So let's see if the other one that is still being delivered or shipped, if it has any better results. No, I'm not wearing makeup normally. It's just for the lights in the stream. Typically a lot of like or generally when you're on camera and you have lights, your skin is reflecting. So if you go a little, people tend to like suggest that you wear a bit of makeup or powder to deal with that. I've never done this before because I've never appeared like on camera before, but I noticed it really badly yesterday, and then I thought, oh, let's try it out. You know, it's always about learning some new stuff, and testing things out, and I don't know. So this is the first. So now I own this 30 euros this 30 euros powder thingy. Okay, this wire cutter is not a good choice. It's like not working out for me. God damn it, broke off. Yeah, so there's actually a video idea related to that I've been like thinking about, but I've kind of dreaded doing it at some point. But so I have this kind of opinion that is not based on any necessarily facts. It's more like a feeling, or I don't have hard evidence for it, but I believe normal people absolutely don't need a VPN, because nowadays most of it has proper SSL, and so you're totally fine from like man in the middle or malicious observers, like Wi-Fi monitoring. So basically, I thought about analyzing. You have a regular MacBook and you installed a couple of things and you browse a couple of websites. What could an active attacker and what could a passive attacker actually do in the network? And would a VPN help you in a certain way there? And basically to explore the actual threat model and if people need to worry or not to worry. And my assumption is people shouldn't worry. SSL is doing fine. If you browse Facebook, you are totally safe on a public Wi-Fi. That's kind of my view. So, and I thought about exploring that with network sniffing. Maybe show an example of your daily work and finding of vulnerabilities. To be honest, I feel like that's exactly what I'm doing. Like the CTF video write-ups are basically how I work. It's just, the difference is just that you don't know where the vulnerabilities are. The code bases are obviously a bit larger. Otherwise, it's basically the same. Like I get so irrationally mad when like these YouTubers advertise like, oh, the internet is so insecure and you need to protect yourself from hackers. And so I don't understand how a VPN can help you with protect you from hackers. It makes no sense at all. For most people, it doesn't do anything. Like it's such a limited use case, and then it's a question if that threat even exists nowadays, really. I don't say that VPNs are completely useless. I also use VPNs, but I think the threat model is rather small and very limited, and so you just need to understand when to apply it, rather than, obviously for marketing reasons, those VPN companies are obviously trying to do this fear mongering. Instead of like saying it's like a silver bullet for like everything or something like that. A VPN are good when you want to browse blocked website at school. Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. That's a technical solution, but that has nothing to do with security or anything like that, right? The VPN doesn't protect you from... Yes, it protects you from man in the middle, but why do you need that? Like, the question is, from what kind of man in the middle does it protect you? And kind of like my thesis is that actually a random normie person who just like uses Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, who watches YouTube, and Snapchats and all that stuff. All these applications have already SSL and do that properly. The browser, an up-to-date browser is handling SSL properly. You are safe against man in the middle already on these things. Now, maybe there are still applications that download updates that are not signed or something like this. That might be true, and that man in the middle you can kind of protect against. But effectively, you just allow the VPN company to man in the middle you know. So if your concern is like a man in the middle on kind of like a more global network scale sense, like the NSA or even your ISP or something like this, well, now you just let somebody else man in the middle you. It doesn't really make much of a sense. Well, in some way it might even open up additional attack surfaces. So here's one angle that I'm also not like it's not like I've reviewed a lot of the API VPN offerings, but like for example, I remember looking just at one offer, and there was like a cheaper offer, and there was a more premium offer, and the premium offer had like private IP protection or something like this. I don't know. Basically, what it was is that when you join a VPN, and depending on how the VPN is set up, you get assigned an IP inside of that VPN. So that might be like a 10 dot something IP. Now everybody else in this IP range can, depending on how the VPN is set up, might be able to directly talk to your IP. Now, your laptop at home would usually be behind a router and wouldn't be able to directly receive connections. So if you have just some shitty service locally in your network open, anybody on the internet couldn't reach you. But now, because you have your laptop joined the VPN and you get this IP, anybody else in that VPN can port scan you and figure you out. So it might even open you up on a tech service. Is that very realistic? I don't think so. I don't also think that's a very unlikely scenario, and people shouldn't fearmonger regarding that. But in the same way, I also don't think, the fearmongering of a man-in-the-middle attack is not as prevalent anymore. The thing is, a few years ago, like maybe 6 or 7 years ago, websites still weren't really using HTTPS. And so there, a public Wi-Fi or any kind of man-in-the-middle was death. Like, you could just sniff cookies out of thin air and browse as somebody on Facebook and get that account or something like this. Oh my gosh, yes. If we would still live in a world like that, hell yes. We need something like a VPN solution. Or SSL. SSL solved that, right? That's what SSL is for. But a VPN could never be a replacement for SSL, could it? I mean, from the VPN exit point, you need SSL too. Yeah, that's the thing, right? The VPN would protect you from the local public Wi-Fi that you are in. But then, you shift like and that's a thing of kind of like the threat model. It's easier for a random criminal to go into a Starbucks and fiddle around with the Wi-Fi than being able to go into the data center and fiddle around with the connections of your VPN provider there. So basically, you just lift the bar a bit higher to what it takes to man-in-the-middle you in a certain way, right? So that is might be a valid argument. When I think of, I don't have a definite answer. I wouldn't say, VPNs are stupid, and I wouldn't say VPNs are great. It's a very nuanced answer. It's a complicated technology that has certain properties that you should hopefully be aware about. It's for me a little bit similar to what we did with the hardware wallet. If you watch the first introduction episode of the hardware wallet series, I was just talking about the threat model of hardware wallets, right? And the problem is that these devices are so extremely complicated. To really understand what they can do and what their limitations are is extremely complex and might not even be possible for you to figure out, because it would require extensive reverse engineering or whatever to really understand what their limitations are and not. And so that's what I a little bit see, also with the VPN stuff. I worry that people feel safe and then act in a way that makes them more unsafe. A little bit I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of kind of the technologies that make people feel safer, or tries to protect them a little bit, and the person gets a very high sense of security, and because of that behaves even more recklessly, which then is counterproductive. Oh, thanks for the sub, Avaldor. Can't I just set up an IP, and when you ask for the Facebook page, I just serve you a fake login page? In that case, using a VPN, I could not be able to see what you are requesting. I think it was answered. You can't do that with SSL. Your browser will throw an error. Yeah, so, okay, you leak a little bit over from your DNS, what kind of DNS and also the IPs you are connecting to. Does that really matter, to be honest? For security, maybe for privacy. But again, privacy is not equal security. These are different concerns. And if privacy is a concern, why do you want this company registered somewhere on the Maldives or whatever kind of tax haven these VPN providers are always registered on? Why do you trust this random dark company who you have no clue who is behind it with all your data that you're connecting to over your ISP, for example, right? You're just shifting who will know what you are doing. So you worry basically more about some random kitty in a Starbucks seeing which IPs you connect to and which porn sites you visit, and they giggle about that, than you worry about some random faceless company harvesting that data for whatever reason. I mean I don't know where I'm standing on that, but you should think about that. So yeah, huge meteorite made that point. VPN is for privacy. Only the VPN provider knows what you're browsing, and a good VPN provider won't care what you're browsing. You will never be able to know what the VPN provider is doing with that data, especially when they are registered in weird-ass countries where you have no clue about their jurisdictions. Now, here's a legal dilemma. In an ideal way, for example, me as a German, in some way, I would like my VPN provider to also operate in Germany, because then I have legal jurisdiction over his, and I know which laws under which he's operating and how he has to handle me as a German citizen, my data. Now, if that company is sitting somewhere else, maybe that country has certain laws, but maybe these laws only affect also their citizens and not foreign citizens. For example, with the US, it's like a case of, a lot of the Snowden stuff was about spying on Americans, but I didn't care. I'm not American, right? For me, it matters that they spied on me, but it's, so from a legal standpoint, you have absolutely no chance to defend your privacy with a VPN provider, I would say. And so it comes down to trust. And so maybe if it's like your friend's small VPN company, there are so many VPN companies. So maybe your friend is doing that and you trust that friend to handle your traffic, then go for it. But then again, also if your jurisdiction is in your country, in Germany, for example, then they are also due to subpoenas, and they might be able to wiretap you anyway there. So, I find VPNs for personal use basically useless unless for access inaccessible services. Yeah, so it's great for IP blocking. That's a useful utility, but I don't really care about the privacy in that case. Just like a utility. It's used. Yeah, I don't know. It also is like VPN. The term VPN, virtual private network. It was not intended to be some kind of privacy anonymous protection tool. It was supposed to create virtual private networks, an overlay network over what you are doing right now, to interconnect machines into a virtual network. And so businesses use it more in that traditional sense, that you from remote you can connect to the virtual private network of that company, and now you are inside of that company's network and you can access these servers in your company's network or something like this. That is what it's intended to use for. That it can be used as kind of a proxy, as kind of just a byproduct, and which is a good use. It's still cool that you can do that with VPNs, but what I'm saying is there are a lot of nuances and a lot of small things that need to be considered, and it's definitely not the silver bullet everybody's hailing, or how it's advertised in marketing, and it definitely has its usages, but every positive point also has a negative nuance attached to it, like who do you trust with your data and stuff like this. Your privacy arguments has this nuance that now this company handles this data and all that stuff, right? That's what my point is, and that I worry that the general public has a completely wrong perception from what a VPN actually provides, just because the general public doesn't actually understand how the VPN is working. Not everybody looks for the green lock in the icon bar. A page looks like Facebook, mostly some. Yeah, but so for example, that might be true, but who is here doing that? Like, do you think it's more likely that some random attacker gets physically close to you and does like a Wi-Fi thing, or do you think it's more likely that at some point China is rerouting the global traffic for an hour and is harvesting then some data for like, okay, maybe, sorry, I didn't want to engage in any country, not China, some country, might be the US too. Yeah. So for example, Tor, if you care about privacy and anonymity and stuff like that, then use Tor. It's free. It's made for that purpose. Like that's actually what you want to use if you care about privacy and stuff like that. Yeah, so yeah, some people use it for P2P. Right, so this is another thing, right? Like for, let's call it mild criminal activity, copyright infringement or something like this. You also need to understand, we know that VPN is a good enough protection from that kind of P2P thing. The general police, just because of copyright infringement, doesn't have the power over borders to talk to a VPN to figure out who you are, stuff like this. But then again, how did you, theoretically, if they were able to do that or something like this, how did you pay for that VPN? Is that payment thing attached to your identity and stuff like that? I'm not sure. Have there been any cases where just by Tor, where we know that just by Tor correlation on that kind of like level that they actually got somebody? Usually it was always some kind of fuck up, right? Like they traced the payments back to their real account, or a person accidentally, like the VPN or the Tor, like fucked up once and they accidentally visited the page, some page with without the browser or something like that. They revealed some, like the LulzSec people, they were talking like in, I think this one guy in the UK, they got him because he mentioned that he had that he got caught by the police with weed, and so they were able to narrow down like the list of suspects to like a couple of people, just because there weren't that many people with that kind of weed thing in that week or something like that, I think those things are more likely to just screw you over. I think I mentioned this maybe previously at some point in the past, but so I started liveoverflow, try to do it anonymously. Like I try to really separate my identities and do this anonymously. Not because I thought I was doing anything illegal or something like that. I was actually more worried that it would hurt my professional career, that people, like a company would see that I make YouTube videos and they would think this is totally lame and I wouldn't be able to get a job anymore or something like this. So that's kind of what I worried about. So I tried to separate it hard, and I screwed up so much. People were finding out my real name, my real email address all the time. I have so many screw ups. My first screw up I think I remember was, so that was, I think Let's Encrypt wasn't quite yet easy to use or something like this. So I got like a certificate from something else, and I signed up with that for that certificate with my real email, not realizing that email would appear in the certificate. And somebody then checked my SSL certificate for liveoverflow.com, or at that point it was a different domain. It was like liveoverflow.ws, and in there they found my real email. So that was my first big fuck up. And I had a couple of those things. And that taught me I will never be a cyber criminal. Like, I have absolutely no chance to stay anonymous. It's so fucking tedious. Try to tape the front part to prevent the... Oh, you are so smart! Try to tape the front part to prevent the damage. That's so smart! Let's try that. Want to learn cybersecurity? Where should I start? I know program basics and computer mid-level info. It's really difficult for me to answer. I don't think that there's a specific good start point. However, I hope that if you go to my website, liveoverflow.com, in the top menu, you find a thing saying start hacking, where I linked 2 videos where I kind of explain a little bit my view on learning security. And then at the bottom, I also give like a couple of just a few bullet points of like kind of starting points, what you could do. That's kind of the only advice I can give. Unfortunately, restricting devices and really locking them down is pretty good in some way for security. That's, I think, is what iOS does right. I think that's good. However, I think it's bad that they then also restrict it for research. So I would wish that, yes, the consumer product is completely restricted, stripped down just to the App Store, all great. But I wish there was like a developer or research mode that is difficult to enable. Maybe even attached to like registering with Apple or something like this. Like really that consumers don't do it. It's really make it hard, make it a hurdle so that really only developers do it. That seems like a really good idea. Oh my gosh, it has. Like it's just slipping through. It doesn't hold it. It's really just slipping through now. And I don't know how to adjust the force thing. Like this doesn't seem to do anything. Oh my gosh, makes so slow progress. Over 2 hours and we haven't even finished this module. Oh my god, it's so terrible. Have you ever done data forensics? Not really. I don't really know forensics. But do you know the great forensics channel that exists on YouTube? 13 Cubed. If you are interested in data forensics, he's a professional doing forensics work, and so he's sharing a lot of videos on like the kind of tools that they are using and that kind of stuff. It's interesting, especially if you have never like seen that stuff before. There are a lot of things I don't know, like some kind of metadata files that are, for example, created by Windows and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of stuff that you can learn there. You should do something similar with Arduino too. What do you mean? We actually will also use an Arduino in this project because you need to program, first of all, you need to program like the EEPROM. That has something to do with like the decoding of the instructions. I think it's like the microcode or something like this that we are making there. I'm not 100% sure yet because I haven't really watched it. We would have to always program that by hand when we turn it on, and so we can automate this programming with an Arduino. And the same way with the RAM, if you want to program a program on it, you would have to program the RAM by hand. And so we could also build an Arduino that automatically writes the program into memory. So is anybody also considering building it? Has anybody else ordered parts or has even built it in the past or something like that? You bought the breadboards. Yeah, that's I think what I remembered. By the way, Toby, I actually have a friend from university who used to name himself Toby Plus on social media. So when you were coming in as Toby Plus Plus, I for a while assumed that you are actually my friend from university, until at some point you wrote something that made me realize you are definitely not that friend. But it's a funny coincidence. I was thinking about to order the parts, but then realized that I have some unfinished projects on my desk, so maybe later on. Oh yeah, the eternal problem, isn't that always the same? Thanks for the bits, Marslice, and good night. Thanks for hanging out. What do you think about mobile security? Do you have an opinion whether iOS or Android is more secure? That is actually a very, I wouldn't say a good question. It's kind of like a bit annoying, to be honest. But it's a question you could I could talk for hours about, because there's no simple answer. And It's a little bit like the VPN discussion, to be honest, in the sense that it gets quickly very, very complicated and very nuanced, and a lot of different things that have to be considered. Wait, what? Oh my gosh, do I actually want to go into this now? I actually made a video about this. I made a video with the title, "Is the iPhone Secure?" And in that video I basically explore that, and a couple of different angles that how you can look at it. In the end, I didn't upload it. I never published it. I didn't feel like it was actually good in the end. I didn't feel like it really is. Yeah, I mean, I didn't publish it. I thought it wasn't that good. It's a video that I will make available to patrons at some point. But yeah, so for example, let's say the biggest thing I've been thinking about a lot. So I would say in many arguments, iOS is more secure than Android. Or used to be, maybe. I don't know. Let's pretend for a moment iOS is more secure than Android, okay? Let's just say that would be a fact. Now, just because iOS is harder to exploit doesn't necessarily mean it's actually the better choice for people, or as a choice, because you have to consider that the iOS market is extremely homogeneous. There are just a handful of different devices. On Android, on the other hand, you have an extreme device fragmentation that makes developing exploits extremely difficult. So if you have an exploit for iOS, you know this exploit will work. That exploit might be 10 times more expensive than on Android, than an Android exploit, might be 100 times more expensive. The difference might be 100,000 versus 1,000,000, right? That is cost. But the thing is, it will work. These devices are all the same. If you have a reliable exploit for iOS, it works. If you have a reliable exploit for Android Pixel 3, then it might not work on Samsung, or it needs to be adapted, or for sure it needs to be adapted, and it might be easily adapted, or it might not even work, right? Different baseband chips, if you have exploits that start with the baseband and then escalate to the main CPU and stuff like this, these things work. You can implement it on iOS, and all these devices will it work against. On Android, you don't know. So, yes, exploits are more expensive, might be more difficult on iOS, the research, than on Android and all that kind of stuff. But if you are a nation state and you want to target people, then in some way it's way more reliable to buy a very expensive iOS exploit because it will always work, versus Android that is unlikely to work. The conclusion you could draw from that is that iOS is more insecure, just because the likelihood of a weaponized iOS exploit is higher than the likelihood of an weaponized Android exploit. I don't know. We don't know, right? This is also data that we don't have as regular people, but it's something we can theorize about. The subscriber count there in the background is the La metric. It's this overpriced thing every YouTuber has. But it's also an old Android, right? An old iPhone. It's an iPhone 6s. If I would really care about security, I would always want to be on the latest, newest iPhone model and always update when it's there. Maybe even go with the beta releases or something like that, maybe. Because if you stay ahead, because the research is kind of slow, right? The development of these jailbreaks might lag behind maybe a little bit. So if you go with iPhones and you really care, and you might think are targeted by nation state, then your option would again either be Android, maybe, maybe, but you don't know. With iPhone, you at least know that the nation state might have the ability, and you can try to stay ahead of the curve if you always buy the newest device and stay up to date. But you can also just assume it's compromised and design your life around it. Should the stream not be under electronic? Well, we are also just chatting, aren't we? Well, the problem with a Nokia 3310 is, or I am not, okay, maybe, I'm not sure with the current version. I think they made like a refresh version, right? The problem is that it doesn't support LTE and only like, 2G. And 2G is horribly insecure. You want like LTE for voice. But then also the problem with that is also that in the end the nation state might still be able to just subpoena and wiretap at your mobile operator. But in terms of like IMSI catcher and stuff like this, like if they have devices outside at protests and stuff, you want to only use LTE and disable any fallbacks and stuff like that. Has anybody like a suggestion? How would you handle like these times where there's like no conversation in chat and I'm just kind of quiet? Like, unfortunately, I don't think I'm like spontaneous enough to just talk about stuff. But maybe there's like a trick, like a framework you can use to always find something to talk about or something like that. I don't know. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like, how can I fill the quietness? Well, make random noises while you think, kind of work like ASMR. Also, just expressing your thoughts aloud while you do something is also fun. So good thing is you are actually making progress. Can't tell if it's an insult. Cutting that. Oh wait, ASMR you said? How was that? This feels good, keep doing it. Oh, that's a good way of seeing it clearly. Some other streamer always said, music is never the reason why someone comes to your stream, but definitely the reason someone would leave your stream. Yeah, that sounds like a good way to look at it. And here we have the output enable. Okay, whew. Do we feel confident of turning it on? And then we try to input something here, output it here, and input it over here or something like that. Okay, everybody, wake up. Okay, wake up. We test this now. So input is disabled, output of this one here is enabled, and output here is disabled. So we disable the output. We put the first LED to low. We enable the input. We execute a clock. We read it in here. We disable the input. We enable the output. Now it's outputting 0, 1, 1, 1. Now we enable the input here. And now this should, through the bus, so this register is currently outputting its value onto the bus, and now this module is ready to read upon the next clock cycle. So we execute the clock. It read it. So now we would disable the input. We could also now disable here the output of this register. So nothing is on the bus, and now we can make this register output its content onto the bus. It works. Okay, so here I guess that's kind of an overview picture. So you didn't connect the clock But the clock was also, so this is the right side of the CPU and the clock will later be in the top left. So I guess that is fine, but we could connect these two with like the separate thing already. So let's rip out this for now. Ooh. I want this to look good, so I'm a bit... There we go, we got it. Oh, I'm really such an idiot. Now I removed the wrong side. Oh, and we have now 4 of these small ones, so we could also connect them together for the bus. Isn't that cool? Let's finish these power rails and then I will also call it a night. Okay, so now this register cleared and input is enabled, and now with the next clock signal it should read what is on the bus. There it is. Boom. We disable the input. We disable the output. And here we can now output this onto the bus. So let's disable this again. Let's enable the input here, but let's set some LED here to 0. And then we read now the bus. You don't see the LEDs, but there's one of the LEDs now is 0, and we read it in there. This was the LED that was 0. So we disable the input. We unplug it again. We enable the output. So this register is outputting its stuff now onto the bus. Here's the LED that is off. Now we can enable the input on this register. Now we get the next clock cycle. That should now read that into here. It read it into here. The LED is off. They are now the same. Alright, that's for it tonight. This works cool. It looks already pretty cool, I would say. Thanks so much for hanging out with me again. We didn't make too much progress, but we had some good conversations, I think. I hope my makeup tutorial helped you, and hopefully we will soon get the good wire cutter, and then we can continue. Thanks again for the bits and the subscriptions, and see you tomorrow. Bye bye.